understand that that's our case?
I disagree with it, and I hear you.
You understand?
I hear you.
No, but do you understand? You can't disagree with something you don't understand. Do you understand the case?
I hear what you are saying, and I disagree with you.
Do you disagree with something you understand or something you don't understand?
Chairman,
Why are you wasting time now? He says
think
he's
it
heard
is.
what you said, he doesn't agree with what you said. I think that's
Chairperson-
enough for my purposes.
Well,
That's
Chairperson,
enough for my
can't you
purposes.
just ask the witness to answer the question so that we move on, rather than
Well,
what have I done except answering, asking a question?
I interpreted his answer as being an answer
Well,
to the question. Let's not waste time, let's carry on.
Yeah, well, let's not. Do you understand the gist of our case?
I have heard the gist of your case, Mr. Mpofu.
Yes. Now, you also understand that to be fair to you, it's no use for me to say you exerted political pressure. That can mean a million things. We have to narrow it to a specific path. Yeah, you understand that?
I'm waiting to hear the question, Mr. Mpofu.
No, that's the question. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the question.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a question mark at the end of that. Do you understand?
I understand.
Thank you. Okay. Now, when I'm talking about all these things, I'm trying to do that so that I can be helpful, so that we can narrow it. Now, that was just to assist you to give context. You, in one of the emails, you suggested that you were going to call Mr. Gwede Mantashe for the ANC to intervene.
Yes.
How was the ANC going to intervene in this situation?
Well, I would have left the intervention of the Secretary General of the ANC up to him. All I would have wanted to do is to say, there is a problem. The African National Congress, as the ruling party in the country, is interested in all manner of things
Yes.
that lead to the lives and deaths of people.
Thanks. Yeah, that's enough. So the ANC had an interest, as you've described it.
I wanted to communicate to the Secretary General.
Yes. Now, in the protection of that interest, how was the ANC going to intervene in line with your proposal?
I don't know how the Secretary General would have intervened, and all I wanted to do was that there should be a discussion.
No. Please, Mr. Ramaphosa. You said that you are going to speak to Mr. Mantashe for the ANC to intervene. It can't be, I can't ask this of Mr. Mantashe, even if he was here, because it's you who proposed it.
Mr. Mpofu, it could have amounted to a variety of things. It could have amounted to him talking to Mr. Matunjwa, who he knows very well from their past days. It could have amounted to talking to anyone who was involved in the whole drama. So, and this is a matter where we required people to be raising the issue and talking to other people.
Oh, is it? All right. And okay, let's put it this way then. If that had succeeded, that the ANC would then have been a player of some sort or another. Peripheral maybe, but it would have been a player, correct?
It could have been, it could never have been, the whole might of the ANC. It could have been the individual, the Secretary General, used to be General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers. He knows some of the players there. He knows Franz Baleni, Senzeni Zokwana, and he knows Matunjwa as well. And he knows quite a number of the people who were involved in that whole drama.
No. Well, two things. One, you know that is not the case. You know that the office of the Secretary General of the ANC brings effectively the weight of the organization, because you've been the Secretary General of the ANC. Isn't that correct?
No. In this case, what would have happened is that Mantashe was being brought in like James Mutlatsi, who used to be the president of the National Union of Mine Workers, to play a role in talking to some of the people who are involved in this.
No, but that is not true, Mr. Ramaphosa, because you said at BBB 4.1. I will be speaking to Gwede Mantashe, the ANC Secretary General, and suggest that the ANC should intervene, not Gwede Mantashe.
Fair enough.
Do you see the difference?
Fair enough.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So now that we've cleared that,
Yes.
what was the ANC's intervention, not Gwede Mantashe, who knows Balene, going to be?
Well, I was seeking to say to the Secretary General, people are dying. People are dying out there. If there is any help that can be brought to bear, people to be talked to so that we can bring the killing of people to an end.
Yes, okay. Let me just summarize it like this. Of the players that we have identified, you were a party, or I'll call it the lowest common denominator, if we talk about the ANC, Lonmin, NUM. Is that correct?
Chair, a question that is not comprehensible. What does it mean to say you are the lowest common denominator?
Well,
I think he meant something else, but perhaps he could read
Well,
it
I
out.
meant exactly that.
Could he just,
Yes,
the
I will,
learned
I
friend
will.
please just make plain what
Yeah.
he's asking? The lowest
Yeah.
common denominator is not something that is comprehensible.
Yeah, well, to those who know mathematics, it is. But what the lowest common denominator means, Mr. Ramaphosa, is that if you have a number of fractions, or in this case we're talking about these entities, the one thing that is common among them could be a number. Let's say there's 12 and 4 and 16 and 4. The lowest common denominator is 4 because it's common to all of them. Lowest. No. LCD, that's what it's called in mathematics. Looks like I have to have night school.
Chairman, I wonder whether the use of metaphor is particularly helpful. Perhaps my learned friend could just ask the question directly that he wants to
Well,
ask.
the question is that you were a common feature in those three entities. I'm sure everybody understands that. Don't know why my time is being wasted.
Let's not get involved in spats. Let's just questions answered.
Well,
you understand the question. You were an actor in each of those three parties that he's referred to. You had a foot in each of those camps, to use another metaphor. That's basically the point he's putting.
Yes.
Thank you. And so what I'm going to do now is just to give you a set of facts on the basis of which I'm going to, at the end, justify my statement that there were these conflicts. You've already said that Mr. Mantashe was the Secretary General of the ANC, correct?
That is true.
He was also a former Secretary General, like yourself, of the National Union of Mine Workers.
General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Mutlatsi,
James Mutlatsi,
Mr. James
former
Mutlatsi,
president of the
president
National
of
Union
the
of Mine Workers.
National Union of Mine Workers in your era, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Mthethwa, when you were phoning Mr. Mthethwa, I'm going to suggest to you, he would not have known whether you were calling him as a shareholder of Lonmin or as a fellow member of the National Executive. Would that be fair? Or did you specify?
You're correct. He would not have known. He would have, yes.
He would have had to guess. Minister Shabangu also would not have known whether you were calling him in your capacity as a shareholder or a board member or a fellow member of the NEC, of the ANC.
Well, I think Ms. Shabangu would have known that I was a board member of Lonmin because we had had dealings on a variety of issues and we had had meetings with her prior to all this on a variety of matters that had to do with the mining business.
No, that's true. Actually, Lonmin submitted a submission on the nationalization debate of the ANC, correct?
Indeed.
Yes. So she would have known, yeah. Okay. Now, you'd also agree, as a seasoned former unionist, that usually the interests of management and the union are not do not coincide completely, let's put it like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And yet, you, being a shareholder and an executive on the Lonmin side, where
He wasn't an executive, he was a non-executive.
no, yes, well, non-executive director, or well, more than that. You are more than just a non-executive director as we know it, independent non-executive director. You are also a shareholder. If you forget the structural things, in the sense that you and I understand, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the one side. Then you are convening a meeting of the union, as it were, or under the banner of the NUM, to see what must be done about the strike at the same time, correct?
What do you mean under the banner of the NUM?
Well, you said that when you were calling Mr. Senzeni Zokwana, James Motlati, and so on to a meeting, which was going to happen on Friday, that was being done as in your capacities as NUM people.
Former NUM people, yes.
Yes, and current in the case of
course.
Mr. Zokwana. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's what I mean by under the banner of the NUM.
Okay.
Yes. Now, would you agree at the very least that is unusual in the sense that you are, as the chairperson put it, one of your feet is on the management, on the company side, let's put it, and then you are also on the labor side?
I don't see what the unusual aspect of that is, because we are human beings, we know each other, we play different roles in different organizations, and we are meeting around a common purpose.
Mr. Ramaphosa, really, in your days as a unionist, would you have had a caucus of the NUM together with Mr. Oppenheimer?
I did meet on a number of occasions with the full knowledge of my members, members of the National Union of Mine Workers, sometimes on a one-to-one basis with people who represent the employers. They knew that there was nothing fraudulent, there was nothing suspicious about those meetings. Mr. Mpofu, I've held numerous meetings with people on the opposite side of the divide. And what I've always sought to do is to deal in those meetings honestly, openly, and make sure that I am prepared to disclose whatever would have been discussed.
Yes.
So there was nothing suspicious about any of those meetings.
Yes, well, you know that that's not what I'm asking about. Obviously, people have to meet, even in the heat of a strike or whatever conflict. That's not what I'm talking about, and you know it. I'm saying, would you, when you were a unionist, would you have found it as a usual occurrence that you have a caucus of the NUM to deal about what to do about the strike and invite Mr. Oppenheimer?
I would not characterize a meeting with the employers as a caucus.
Well, okay, a meeting that happens under the banner, as you and I have agreed, of the NUM, where you invite Mr. Oppenheimer.
Leave Mr.
Well,
Mr. Oppenheimer out of this.
Well, I'm making an example of a person.
Let's deal with some of the things that I experienced and I went through.
Yes.
During the 1987 strike, there was a lot of violence on the mines. And we had occasion to meet with representatives of the Chamber of Mines and of the employers. And in those meetings, we were able to find ways of curbing the violence to the extent that we could, because that was a completely different situation that we are exposed to now. And there was nothing suspicious about that or unusual.
Sorry. Again, you know that I'm not talking about those kinds of meetings. But by the way, since you've mentioned the 1987 strike, was some of that violence perpetrated by your members in the NUM?
Yes.
Yeah.
But as you say that, you will recall what I said earlier, that in the National Union of Mine Workers, we had strike rules.
Yes. Well, did those strike rules involve not shooting other workers?
Not as far as I know. What I do know is that the workers who were shot at by the apartheid police.
Yes, no, I'm saying when you were there, one of the rules you've referred to must have involved people, NUM members, not shooting at fellow workers, correct?
Well, it could not have been maybe specified like shooting, but not perpetrating acts of violence against other workers.
Yes. Well, after you left, as you will hear, on the 11th, actually the first act of violence was by NUM members shooting the protesters.
There's an objection, Chair.
So I heard.
This objection I've had to make previously. It is not the first act of violence. There are several acts of violence and acts of intimidation that have been logged by Lonman in respect of strikers taking action against persons who wish to go to work. So this is not being put correctly, and again, it needs to be put in context.
Okay, Chairperson, I'll refer to my previous answer to that. But you are aware that one of the...
Let's take this point slowly. I think, am I correct in saying that the first live ammunition that was fired in this whole saga, as far as we know on the evidence before us at the moment, was on the Saturday morning by NUM officials who gave evidence. They claimed they were acting in self-defense. There may be a basis for arguing, which we'll hear at the end, that the bounds of self-defense were exceeded. But I think it's correct to say, Mr. Tip, that there is evidence from the unabridged Lonman occurrence book that rubber bullets were fired on the Friday night. But I think it's also correct to say there's no entry that I'm aware of that anybody on either side, actually, either the striker's side or the employer's side or the police side, for that matter, fired live ammunition on the Friday night. The first live ammunition was fired by NUM officials, they say in defense of themselves, on the Saturday morning. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct, Chairperson.
So I think, subject to those qualifications, I think Mr. Mpofu may proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Well, Chair, let me just complete what I have to say on that, because it is my recollection that there are indeed entries in the logs and in the evidence concerning shots of a live ammunition kind that were fired in the course of the evening of the 10th. But with respect, that is not the pertinent question here at all.
Yeah.
It is simply that my learned friend, Mr. Mpofu, must put facts to the Deputy President in a balanced and complete way so that he can deal with it in an equally balanced and complete
Yes.
way.
I'm happy to do it on the basis that the Chairperson...
Maybe you can reformulate it this way. It's not necessarily relevant who fired what first. What is relevant is that what you are putting is that NUM officials did fire live ammunition and injured 2 strikers on the Saturday morning, and that, unless they were acting in self-defense, which they say they were, of course, that would not have been covered by the strike rules to which the witnesses referred.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think, in fairness, the witnesses agreed. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. And by the way, Chairperson, apropos, I don't want to be sidetracked, but the so-called 5 shots that were had turned out to be an unrelated incident, but we'll deal with that on another day.
Well, we don't know. The trouble is there's no evidence really before us in any depth at all of what happened.
No, it did. There was a body that was found with 5 shots, but it was unrelated. We can deal with
evidence
it.
for us as to its relation, if any, to the things
Yes.
we're busy with.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Anyway, we
It's fine.
concentrate on
This much we have
this
established.
much,
Yeah.
on
Thank
the
you.
issues before us. We can make progress.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairperson. In fact, if one goes to your biography written by Anthony Butler, a copy of which was supplied, I'll just read it out, it's a short. On page 195, it says the following. While the strike, this is about the 1987 strike, while the strike unfolded in various ways, no two minds were alike. Violence, at least, was everywhere. The worst of the violence was inflicted by NUM's own members. Strikers assaulted non-strikers and strike breakers with unprecedented viciousness. In some compounds, armed workers set up kangaroo courts and strikers received death sentences, quote unquote, for betraying their comrades. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a correct reflection of what happened.
Well, I remember the reference to it in the biography.
Yes.
It does not follow that it's exactly what happened.
That is exactly why I'm asking you the second question.
Mr. Pofu, just for housekeeping in the proper form. You've given us a copy of an extract from Professor Anthony Butler's biography of the witness.
That is correct.
That extract will be quadruple J9. It's page 22 and following of your bundle, but that won't go into the record. All that will go to the record as exhibit will be this this extract you've given us, and you are quoting from, I think it's page 29 of the bundle, which is 195 of the published book.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me put it this way. I see the distinction. That I was making the same distinction. You remember that that's what it says in the biography. Now I'm saying in relation to the events generally that occurred during that strike, you wouldn't quarrel with what the author says.
You know, I do quarrel because that's not entirely the truth.
Oh. So there was no violence from NUM members?
I'm not saying that there was no violence. There was violence during that strike. A number of people died. The description that he attests to how people died and the kangaroo courts is in question because he clearly has a particular view as a writer, as an author. What he's saying has not been tested. Okay.
Can we then say, going for a minimalist approach, that during that strike there were some attacks and murders of non-strikers?
There were people who were killed, yes, non-strikers as well,
yes.
So a number of people were killed.
Yes. So you're not completely unfamiliar with the notion of strike violence yourself?
I'm very familiar with it, Mr.
Yes.
Pofu.
And you are also familiar with the COSATU study that says that increasingly workers are regarding strike violence as an acceptable way of perpetrating a strike, which is obviously undesirable, but that is what is happening.
I have read that.
Yes. And you know that in recent time, one of the most vicious strikes was, I think 29 people died, was by a COSATU union, I think it was Satau, correct?
Yes.
Right. Now, the bottom line really in what I'm saying is that we are going to argue that your actions in this whole saga were motivated by your own financial interest. Mm-hmm. You understand, and do you agree?
I hear you. I do not agree.
So your actions had nothing to do with your financial interest?
No, they did not.
And yet, in the circulars that were being sent to people, including yourself, some of the things that were being highlighted was the impact of the strike financially on the shareholders, obviously, correct?
Well, it could well be articulated in the circular. My intervention had to do with people losing their lives. I think we need to understand that.
No, your intervention had nothing to do with people losing their lives. It had everything to do with your financial interest and the fact that your shares were diminishing as a result of the strike. That's what I'm
Mr.
putting to you.
Mpofu, I disagree with you completely on that one.
All right, let's go there. You accept that, you have accepted that if Lonmin had engaged with the strikers, the violence would not have occurred.
Well, Lonmin needed to engage with the strikers, negotiate with them. That, I think, we've already covered.
And if they had done so, one of the possible consequences is that the violence would not have occurred.
I don't know whether it would not have occurred.
But it's possible. You considered that yesterday.
Yes, it is.
It is possible, yes. Now, you see, that's because that proposition was put, let me put it this way, generously, by Mr. Badlander, by saying that no further deaths would have occurred. In other words, alluding to the deaths of the 34 miners. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Now, what I'm putting to you is that the Lonmin's obligation, from all the discussions that have taken place, I don't want to recanvass all that, so I'll just put the proposition. If Lonmin did not adopt what you have called and the NUM have called an inflexible approach, on the 10th of August, which is when the strikers first marched to LPD and refused to talk to them, then all the deaths could have been avoided.
The question badly. It's the strikers marched to the LPD, and Lonmin refused to talk to them. You said and refused to talk to them. It's Lonmin refused to talk
yes,
to them.
Yes, at the top of the sentence was Lonmin, so I was still talking about Lonmin.
Anyway, I've added the sentence into the second clause,
right,
which is needed.
But anyway, with that addition, do you accept what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So that this whole notion of yours that you were intervening to stop criminality, to stop violence, and all that is actually baseless, because the very violence that that resulted in the 10 people would have been avoided had you performed your duty to ensure that Lonmin talks to the strikers in accordance with their duties that were shown to you this morning. Do you understand that?
Chair, that's a very, very long set of questions. Perhaps my learned friend.
I'm not asking you. I'm asking the witness.
Chair,
so what if it's wrong?
Mr. Mpofu, I think you must give Mr. Unthals an opportunity to raise his objection without interrupting him.
Yeah, well, the length of the question has never been an objection.
Mpofu, please. Mr. Unthals is still addressing me on the objection. He's entitled to do that. I will call upon you to reply when he's finished.
Thank you.
Mr. Unthals.
Chair, my objection is simply this, that it's unfair to a witness to ask compound questions with multiple variants within them. I would ask my learned friend simply to ask one question at a time and solicit the answers sequentially.
Mr. Mpofu, that is correct. We have frequently in this commission disallowed, or I have disallowed questions that are double or treble questions. This one, I'm not sure how many questions were bound up in this one. There's no objection, as I understand it, to the substance of what you're asking. The request is that you ask your question singly. I think that sounds like a valid request.
Chairperson, really, with the greatest respect, I qualified the question by saying to the witness, I don't want to recanvass all the things that have been recanvassed. I'm going to compound a few propositions in order to save time. And I'm sure the witness understands the question.
Chair,
you know.
I don't understand the question. Could you rephrase the question?
Okay.
Chair, and if I may, just whilst we're having this intervention, it's precisely the problem that by putting multiple propositions, one after the other, and then
I've agreed to that point. And I've frequently, before you joined us, ruled against questions which are not single questions and said the questions must be put singly. And I reaffirm that ruling, and Mr. Mpofu will obey it, I'm sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. You've also said you don't want concurring judgments. Thank you. So, I'm saying to you, this is very important. You have considered that had Lonmin, or let me start a bit You've considered that you knew that all the employees wanted was to be talked to. You knew that.
That's a given.
Yes. You, of all people, know that, as you've said, one of the achievements that you have made in the past was to restore the dignity of mine workers, correct?
Yes.
And one of the ways in which to assert the dignity of a person or a group of persons is to talk to them, whether you're going to agree with them or not. As a skilled negotiator, as you were described, you would know that.
Yes.
Yes. So, the inflexible stance of Lonmin in refusing even to engage, not to give 12,500, but to talk to the workers was an affront to their dignity, among other things, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Now, what I'm saying that had that affront to their dignity not been perpetrated on the 10th, because we know that the first deaths occurred on the 12th, you know that, of the 10. Do you know that the first death of those 10 occurred on the 12th of August?
Yes.
Yes. So, had the affront to the dignity of the workers not been perpetrated on the 10th and they had been engaged, the ensuing deaths could have been avoided. That's the only proposition I'm making.
Chair, I'm not certain how this witness can help on that issue of causation.
I can't.
Isn't it for the witness to say that he can't help?
Yes.
Yes.
Please answer the question.
What's your answer, Mr.
I was about to say I would not be able to say.
Well,
I
you were
really would
able
not
to
be
say
able to
yesterday, you were able to say when it was put to you by Mr. Badlander, that had the approach which was taken by Mr. Da Costa been followed, further deaths could have been avoided.
I think the proposition was different. It was that
The answer, sorry, Mr. Ndolo.
Sorry.
The answer was, the question really was put on the basis of might. It was put on the basis was a possibility.
Really?
It was a possibility. It's one thing to say it's a possibility. It's another thing to say it's a definite proposition.
Yeah.
So if you put it on the basis that he conceded it was a possibility, then you can proceed.
Yes, I'm putting it on that basis.
If it's being put as a possibility, my answer would be yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you had put it forward as though it was a fact.
I
that
am
it was
so
the
sorry.
absolute reality.
Oh, okay, fine.
It
so
is a possibility.
it's a possibility
Yes.
the deaths could have been avoided.
It is a possibility.
Yes. So that your crusade or attempts to save lives would have been unnecessary had the simple duty of engaging the workers been adhered to, possibly, correct?
Chair, the premise.
Sorry?
Yeah? I
Yes.
said, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, yeah is enough.
Where I want to come in, Mr. Mpofu, is with all this having happened and the failure to engage with the workers and then the deaths start, it still does not justify how one seeks to address problems, to go and kill other workers and kill them in the brutal way that they were killed. It still does not justify it.
Mr. Ramaphosa, you know me better. I've said that we go a long way. I would never justify the killing, brutal or otherwise,
Yes.
of any person. That's not the point I'm making. I'm saying to you that let's say, for example, your intervention, belated as it might have been, had happened after the first two deaths had occurred on the 12th, brutal and so on. If your intervention had been to say, well, there are these two brutal deaths, let's engage with the workers, then I'm saying possibly the further 8 deaths might have been avoided. You can't quarrel with that, given where we've come from with this questioning.
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah. So that's really the nub of the issue, Mr. Ramaphosa, which is to say, had you expended a quarter of the energy that you expended with multiple emails and airtime and phoning this one and that one in ensuring that the simple duty of loanmen to affirm the dignity of the workers by engaging them, that energy would have been much more usefully expended, thank you, Chairperson, in that it would have achieved what you claim was your purpose, which was to avoid further deaths. I stop it there because I don't want to ask another long question, and I'm told length is a problem.
Yes.
Simplicity is more the problem. But Mr. Ramaphosa, can you answer the question you've been
Well, the answer that I would give is that we had people on the ground who were engaging with the workers in a variety of ways. And clearly there were weaknesses here and there in as far as engaging with them in the form where they could sit down and negotiate. And what I was then called upon to do, even if you look at all those emails, to say, could you assist us? Because the situation is getting out of control. Many more people are being killed, and that is where I entered. Because I entered at the level at where they believed I could give more effective help.
Yes, no, I accept that. All I'm saying is, I'm making a simple proposition, which says, you probably had easier access to the loanmen people than you had to government ministers. Would that be a fair statement?
I had access to both, almost equally.
Almost equally?
Yes.
Well, okay. Let's accept that.
When it comes to the loanmen people, they are the executives on the ground dealing with the matter.
Yes.
On a day-to-day basis, on a hands-on basis.
Yes, that's fine. Let's accept that you had equal access. Now, all I'm saying is that that equal access would have been better utilized to say to loanmen management the obvious, that people are dying, engage with them. In my experience as a former trade unionist, if you engage with them, engaging with them does not mean you give them what they want. You spoke yesterday of give and take and so on. And the workers have given evidence here that they understood that the employer might not have the 12,500 and so on and so on. And that I'm suggesting that instead of flying to Cape Town and emailing this one and phoning that one, you should have just performed the simple task. Or let me put it this way. Had you performed that simple task, then all the deaths would have been avoided. Could have been avoided, possibly.
No. All of us were performing various tasks. And I was performing the task that I had been asked more directly to help in. I was performing that. And on the ground, and I'm repeating this a few times now, and I'm sure that you will also understand. Maybe I should ask you whether you agree, but
no, you're here
I'm
to
here
answer
to
questions,
answer your questions.
not
Fair
to
enough.
ask questions.
Yeah, I'm here to answer your questions.
Unfortunately.
And all I'm saying is that there was a situation of great exigency, emergency that needed to be dealt with. And that is what I was requested to help in dealing with or solving.
Yes.
And on the ground, Mr. Mpofu, on the ground, they were dealing with other situation of interacting with the workers and doing whatever needed to be done there.
No, I'm sorry. There's no other issue. Your mission was to prevent the deaths of people, wasn't it?
That is what I was doing when I was interacting with all those people that I was interacting with in the emails.
Yeah. I'm simply putting a proposition to you that says, if it was true that your mission was simply to prevent the deaths of people, and it had nothing to do with the fact that the strike was affecting you in the pocket, then you would have taken the easiest route in preventing those deaths, namely to ensure that the strikers are engaged with.
Mr.
I'm sorry. Okay, you can answer.
I did what I had to do in terms of interacting with all those people who I believed could bring the situation under stability. That is what we were dealing with.
Well, also you knew that the management here was reticent or reluctant to engage with the workers because of the floodgates argument, that it would open floodgates and there would be other groups of employees also making these demands. And that, by the way, is also a financial consideration. But the point I'm making is that you knew about that.
I knew that in their interaction with the employees, they had put forward the views that are articulated in the report that I got from Ms. Ngube.
No, I'm afraid it's more than that. There's a new exhibit, Chairperson, which is the extract from the minutes of Lonmin PLC board meeting held on 25 July 2012.
The documents we got, I don't remember reading it last night.
Yes, yes, it was only given yesterday, Chairperson. It's just a half a page.
What you've got in the list that we got was under new documents. It's item 20, relevant Lonmin board minutes still to be specified.
And 21.
We haven't got a 21.
Oh yeah, no. Then you've got the provisional list. Yeah. Right. There is a.
Something is now on. Something is now on the.
That's the one
on the screen. I see. And there's now page 78 in my file. All right. So that will be quadruple J10, extract minutes. This is the LPC company, London. London PLC. Sorry, PLC, dated 25 July.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. In that, it says...
So that's quadruple J10.
10, thank you, Chairperson. In that, it says... I'll just read the first paragraph. This is presumably the CEO's report to you, to the board. Ongoing tension between AMCU and NUM continued to pose the biggest risk to production. Both unions are actively recruiting members across the business, with current membership of AMCU and NUM at 18% and 52% respectively. A 2-year wage agreement was in place with NUM, and whilst limited recognition rights had been granted to AMCU, there was a possibility that AMCU could seek to demand a different settlement ahead of the implementation of this 2012. In addition, that's the important part, rock drill operators were seeking an additional increase to align their remuneration with their counterparts at Impala and Amplatz. Given that we have wage bargaining structures agreed with those unions entitled to collective bargaining rights, we were resisting, underline, resisting any such separate deals, as these would effectively open the door to demands from a potentially unlimited number of other parties, including conflicting and overlapping groupings of workers. You knew about this?
Yes.
In fact, you were at this meeting.
I believe I would have been, yes.
No, well, you were. If you read further down.
Yes, I was, actually.
Yes, thank you. It actually says that Mr. Farmer noted that the potential volatility of the situation between the two unions was apparent in a recent incident where an NUM representative took a handgun to Sefi Shaft. The police were able to intervene before anyone was hurt. Mr. Farmer assured the meeting that there was police presence at the hostels and there were regular checks for weapons. However, the hostels only housed approximately 10% of our workforce. Mr. Ramaphosa suggested that electronic security devices be installed throughout the property to automatically check for firearms, and that serious disciplinary action be taken against all individuals involved in any kind of intimidation or violent behavior. Remember that?
That is correct.
Yeah. So in that meeting, apart from suggesting that they must erect electric fences and all that,
sure,
you did not say this idea of yours in the first paragraph, that we must resist talking to people because it might open floodgates, is dangerous and might lead to violence. Did you?
Well, I would have said clearly, minutes never record everything, but what I would have said is, well, what I did say is that we need to take care to negotiate or to talk to the unions, and if anything, explain to them the difficulty that this would give rise to, that you give an increase to one bargaining unit and then it starts it starts creating problems all around. That is the type of thing that any management should be able to explain to workers and say, may not be able to do it now, but if we do it now, this is the problem that it would give rise to. That is the view that I put forward.
Well,
but it's obviously not recorded.
well, it's not about not being recorded. If you had put that forward, if indeed you had put that view forward, and not been defeated, then on the 10th of August, the stance that was adopted, which I've said was causally linked to all the deaths, all 44 of the deaths, the stance that was taken could not have been taken, because what would have happened here, you would have poo-pooed this idea, and it would have been clear that this is not the approach to be taken, and then 2 weeks later or so, when the workers came at LPD, they would not have been told that management is refusing to talk to them, using the same lame excuse about agreements.
Again, Chair, my learned friend is simply giving an address. If he could either ask questions or break down the propositions he wants to put.
Yeah.
Are you unable to answer the question as your counsel suspects?
I don't know what the question is.
The question is simple.
Helps us when we read the record later, when to have single questions, single answers. Otherwise, you'll ask a whole lot of questions to one. You get an answer yes. What's he saying yes to? So please adhere to that ruling I gave.
Chairperson, honestly.
I'm sure you will deal with it honestly too.
You know, I'm sure many questions have been asked in this commission, much longer and more multiple than that. But be that as it may, I'm saying to you, okay, let me do it like this. Did you or did you not raise an objection to this proposal?
Well, I raised the issue of discussing this problem that the CEO had raised with the unions and articulating to them the difficulty and getting them to understand how this increase in between wage agreements would create a problem.
Then why did the board not adopt your suggestion or warning?
Well, I don't know. I was just one board member out of many.
No, you cannot know, Mr. Ramaphosa. It's either you did not raise the thing, as the minutes suggest, or you raised it and then you were defeated. You can't say, I don't know.
Well, clearly it's something that management would have needed to act on. And as it turns out, yes, they didn't act on it.
All right.
Yes.
So then it's even worse. Then it means that the management, despite your warning that the path that they were following might be dangerous, on the 10th of August, nevertheless refused to speak to the workers, knowing that this might lead to violence. Is that your evidence?
Well, that's what you're putting forward. You say they refused to speak to management. I mean, to the workers.
Yes. No, I'm saying there are only two possibilities. It's either they refused to speak to the workers in line with what they had presented here, or they refused to speak to them in contravention of what you had raised.
Well, I think we would need to look at the various sequences that followed, whether meetings were held, any real attempt was made to meet, and at the executive management level, whether they sought to meet. And I know for sure that management there was a time when they were even afraid to go to the copy. When they were called to go to the copy, they thought that they would be attacked and killed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You see, that excuse is even lamer than the first one, because by all accounts, on the 10th of, even in one of your emails, on the 10th of August, the march was peaceful. So nobody was afraid of anything. Mm-hmm. So that could never have been the reason why they did not engage. The only reason they did not engage is because of what is stated here.
Well, as I say, one would need to understand the number of attempts that were made on both sides. I don't have line of sight of that right now, to be quite truthful.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
That I understand. I'm simply saying to you, the evidence so far, you can take it from me, otherwise I'm sure somebody will object, is that the march of the 10th was peaceful, and that management refused to speak to the workers. And we are going to argue that that was, I don't want to bore you with that was the event that then snowballed into a whole lot of tragic events.
Okay.
I'm just summarizing. You understand that?
I understand.
Yes. And there was no question of anybody being afraid of anything on the 10th. Actually, Mr. Sinclair, who was the security person, I think was surprised, but you know, that's what he was told. Go and tell them we're not going to speak to them. I'm saying that, had that not happened, well, you and I have agreed, had that not happened, possibly the rest might have been, the day might have been saved, correct? And we would not be sitting here.
I understand what you say.
So, let's then go to the question of I just wanted to deal with, I've dealt with the question of what I call the conflicts. I want to deal now with the element of unlawfulness of some of the, remember we said there were those activities, and I'm going to attach certain things to them, as it were.
Which conflicts were you referring to?
The conflicts that you and I have gone through, the lowest common denominator and all that, that whole discussion, ANC, Lonmin, NUM, sitting on both sides, shareholder.
That's the way you presented the point. Of course, the conflict of interest actually goes a bit further than that. You can, if you wear three hats, you can wear, provided they don't clash with each other, you can wear all of them simultaneously when you engage in negotiations or do other things. But it's the clash between your different interests which causes you to, with either say I'm only acting in this capacity, or to recuse yourself completely because you can't, you owe loyalties to two sides and you can't.
Yeah, but that's exactly.
But you didn't.
I did, Chairperson. I spoke about being in NUM and being in a union at the same time as being in management. What more?
Well, I'm just saying to you, that's the point that's inherent in a conflict of interest. If you're satisfied you dealt with the point adequately and you were about to argue to the end, well, then I won't stop you.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to respond to this issue of conflict of interest because it does seem to be quite central in Mr. Mpofu's cross-examination. And I would have thought that the issue of conflict of interest, a problem of conflict of interest, really should only arise when one believes that there is the connection between the parties is improper, it's either fraudulent or even maybe even criminal.
Yes.
Now, in all these relationships that you tried to even suggest are incestuous, I would say that if someone is trying to help solve a situation which would either save lives, would either advance the common purpose of everyone, it should never be seen as a conflict of interest. You came to me here yesterday as counsel and you said, I've been trying to be certified as senior counsel. Is there anything you can do for me?
No, that's not true.
And
no,
I said,
no, that is untrue.
Yes.
You mustn't. No, but he can't come here and make up stories. You can't make up stories. He said to me, "Are you senior counsel here? Tell the story as it happened, Mr. Ramaphosa."
don't interrupt with the witness.
No, but he must not lie.
When he's finished, that's a question we don't have to go into now. When he's finished his answer, you can deal with it. But if you're going to interrupt, you're going to interrupt him or he's going to interrupt you, then things will get out of hand.
Yeah.
Let's keep the temperature down, let him finish his answer, and you can then deal with it.
Mr. Chairman,
Let him go on.
Mr. Mpofu and I had a fairly friendly discussion here yesterday. And I asked him, are you now senior counsel? He said,
Now that's true.
he says, yes, I'm supposed to be senior counsel. And I said, Silk, and he said, I'm supposed to be, all that remains is for the president to sign the certificate that I should be clothed with the proper robe of being a Silk.
Yeah.
And then he said,
And I showed you Miss Pillay.
and you even referred to Ms. Pillay, and he said there are quite a number of other counsels who are waiting for the
Including,
this
I referred to the judge's son as well.
And he said, and he said it awaits the president's signature. And he said, is there anything you can do for me?
No, I did not say that.
And I said,
Mr. Mpofu,
darling,
please, Mr. Mpofu,
No,
please,
but I can't allow somebody to lie
Mr.
about
Mpofu,
me.
I
Chairperson.
can't allow people to interrupt other people.
Yeah.
If he's saying things you don't agree with, I'll give you an opportunity.
I
But
don't,
heckle
okay,
him.
say what
Don't
you want,
don't
but you
interrupt
know
him
that
with-
is not true.
and I
Let
said,
him
Mr.
say
Mpofu,
what
don't
he wants.
interrupt
He's
me
just
either.
wasting my...
Mr. Mpofu, don't interrupt me either.
Okay, well,
Let's keep the temperature down. Let the witness continue his answer. If you don't like it, you want to put something to him, you can do so.
let him...
Otherwise,
okay,
we won't
say
get
what you
anywhere
want
with
so
this
that we can go
No,
back to
You're
the
interrupting me
issue
again.
of the murder of
Mr.
the people.
Mpofu, you're interrupting me again.
the point
Please.
I'm trying to get to, Mr. Chairman, is this issue of conflict of interest. And I even raised it with him. And I said, oh, this could be a conflict of interest. But then I said, it cannot be a conflict of interest because I do want you to get that certificate. I do want you to be a Silk properly with a proper certificate. And I say so even as I know that he's opposed to me. He's on another sort of side of the political divide. It is, for me, of great interest that his career and everything should be advanced. So there is no conflict of interest when it comes to that because there's nothing fraudulent about it, there's nothing criminal about it. And similarly, when I intervened for the people, the killings to stop, what he calls an incestuous relationship cannot be so because what I was seeking to do is to advance the common purpose of everyone and save lives. Just like I am prepared to ensure that one intervenes so that he can get his certificate to be able to practice as a senior counsel. That's what I was referring to as on the issue of conflict of interest.
Well, Mr. Ramaphosa...
Mr. Mpofu, what you want?
Thank you, yeah. Mr. Ramaphosa, if you can misrepresent something that happened less than 24 hours ago and tell an untruth about the sequence of what happened, then one shudders how much misrepresentation and falsification you can put to the events where your integrity and your criminality is in question. Now, what I'm saying is
Mr.
this.
Mpofu, let's ask a question. If there's a conflict of fact between you as to what was said yesterday, then it's a matter for evidence. But it's not an issue covered by our terms of reference, and I don't propose to investigate.
Well, you allowed it, Chairperson, so I must have a say. You understand? If he can make falsifications about me in a public forum, the least you can allow, Chairperson, is for me to refute it, if you are a fair Chairperson.
Sure, of course I'm a fair chairperson.
Oh, well, that's what I thought.
I would have hoped that there'd be no question about it.
Yes. No, there isn't, Chairperson. I don't want to be sidetracked. What I said to the gentleman is that your son, I even said the judge's son, Miss Pillay, sitting there, and myself, when he asked, are you a Silk, are in the same position. And he said, I never said, is there anything you can do? That is just a fabrication. He then said, I will speak to whoever he's going to speak to. That's all. And he even said, and I'm sure that the majority of those people are black people who are on that list, and therefore I will intervene. He offered that himself gratuitously, so don't come and patronize me. I did not ask you for any favors.
It's not a conflict of interest.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, well,
now,
it's not going to help us to resolve the issues before us. But anyway,
Yes.
you've replied to what Mr.
Thank you,
Ramaphosa
Chairperson.
said. Now, I propose taking the tea adjournment now, and then hopefully, after the break occasioned by the tea break, The last one, we're supposed to be quarter of an hour. It was half an hour because we had to discuss the program for tomorrow and the day after. This time, let's stick to quarter of an hour.
Thank you, Chairperson.